Let's get it on then, shall we? Mwah. Welcome to Sex on the Peach, your weekly hump day dose of everyone's favourite untalked about topic, sex. Let's get honest, let's get open, let's get comfortable, and let's get in to this week's show. Friends, lovers, listeners, it's not Wednesday, it's not hump day, but it is Sex on the Peach Day, brought to you here on this very special Friday because it is indeed Halloween. And whatever costume you choose to wear today, let's be real, nothing is more scary than real life. And I usually love to dress up as something truly terrifying, but this year I just didn't know how to put together a costume that says straight musical theatre boy between the height of 5'10" and 5'11". Joke's on me, I've slept with them all. But all jokes aside, not really, there will be plenty of jokes throughout, obviously. We love humour as a coping mechanism. One thing we are clearly all still scared of as a society is sex. Or at least scared of talking about it, which is funny considering, as I've said a million times, it's literally the reason any of us exist. It's truly one of the most natural things on the planet. You would think by now we'd be confident, well-informed, relaxed about the whole thing. But instead, we whisper about it like we are talking about he who must not be named. Somehow, in 2025, when people are live streaming their panic attacks and reviewing their exes on TikTok, we still can't say orgasm without lowering our voice like we are confessing to a crime. We will talk about death, disease, trauma, before we will talk about what actually turns us on. We treat sex like a haunted house. Everyone's kind of curious, but no one wants to go in first, and half of us are convinced something's going to jump out and ruin our lives. But the thing is, sex itself isn't scary. It's awkward, yes. Messy, sure. Occasionally undignified, definitely. But scary, no. What's scary is what we've been taught to believe about it. From the start, sex comes wrapped in layers of silence and shame. Parents, especially of previous generations, avoid the subject like it's contagious. Schools teach it like it's a legal disclaimer. And by the time we reach adulthood, we've internalized the idea that sex is both vital and taboo. Something we should be amazing at but never ever talk about. So, of course we're all confused. Of course we're terrified. We've been given contradictory scripts. Sex is beautiful and natural, but don't do it too soon, or too often, or with the wrong person, or in the wrong position, or enjoy it too much. Basically, have sex, but only in the exact way society approves of, while pretending you're not enjoying it. It's exhausting, and it's also kind of funny because the more we avoid talking about sex, the weirder it gets. We're like a nation of people collectively agreeing to never read the manual on the thing we use most often. And since it's Halloween, the one time of year we actually celebrate fear, I thought we'd face this particular demon head on. Why does sex, or even saying the word sex, still make so many of us feel uncomfortable? Where does that fear actually come from? And most importantly, how do we reclaim the fun part, the play, the pleasure, without feeling like we are doing something wrong? So why is sex scary? Sex is scary because it hits three of our deepest anxieties at once. intimacy, performance, and body image. It's like a psychological triple threat. Will I last long enough? Will I look ridiculous? Will I even know what I'm doing? Combine all of that with a bit of social conditioning, and suddenly a perfectly normal act feels like stepping into a room where everyone is expecting you to fail. We are terrified of rejection, terrified of being bad at it, terrified that someone will see the real us, the messy, awkward, unfiltered parts, the bits that don't match the Instagram highlight reel of desires we've been cultivating in our heads. And then there's shame, that charming little souvenir from childhood, the one that whispers, "You're dirty for wanting this. You shouldn't enjoy this. Keep it hidden." Even if no one ever said that outright, most of us absorbed it anyway. From silence at home or awkwardness at school and sex education, from every hushed conversation where desire was treated like a scandal. And the irony, of course, is the more we internalize that shame, the scarier sex feels and the less likely we are to talk about it. And silence, as we all know, is an excellent breeding ground for fear. Society has spent centuries convincing us that good sex should be effortless, flawless, cinematic even, which is frankly insulting because real sex is often clumsy, funny, and occasionally disappointing. Yet the myth persists, and we instead enter the bedroom feeling like we should be auditioning for an award rather than simply connecting with another human being. Here, especially in the UK, we have a long, proud history of pretending we don't have genitals. The stiff upper lip is brilliant for cueing polite small talk and surviving another grey Monday, but it's terrible for oral communication. And I don't just mean speech. We inherited a cultural hangover from Victorian morality and religious guilt. Centuries of sex is dirty messaging, all disguised as good manners and moral responsibility. Flirtation was scandalous, curiosity was shameful, and any open discussion about pleasure was, well, it didn't exist. And we're still detoxing from that. Centuries of ingrained prudishness aren't going to vanish after one awkward sex ed lesson in year 9. Speaking of which, look at the state of sex education if you had any at all. Most people's consisted of a condom being dramatically rolled onto a banana, the universal symbol of awkward mechanical instruction, followed by a PowerPoint about chlamydia that looked like it had been designed by Satan's intern on their lunch break. Charming, informative, and utterly terrifying in equal measure. No one told us how to talk about pleasure, or curiosity, or awkwardness. No one said, yeah, sex can be messy. Yeah, it's normal to feel nervous. Yes, talk to your partner. The lesson was, here's a diagram, don't die, and probably wash your hands. And in the past 10 years, they've added in, and gays can have sex too. Great. There's a reason the queer community are generally more open when it comes to sex, and it's because we had to figure every single tiny little thing out ourselves. And then we have the media version of sex, which, naturally, is perfect. Or at least perfect in Photoshop. Everyone must maintain perfect lighting, a curated background, and ideally, a soundtrack that suggests passion instead of panic. Real sex? Yeah, it rarely fits that script. We are constantly bombarded with images of what's desirable, smooth, toned, perfectly proportioned, No wonder we worry that what we actually look like under the covers will trigger horror instead of desire. So what do we end up with? A culture where sex is treated as either scandalous, dangerous, or a performance review. It is no wonder so many of us are entering the bedroom feeling like we are walking into an exam we did not revise for. And that's not just Britain, even though we love to think of ourselves as world champions of repression. Most societies have their own flavour of sexual awkwardness. Religious teachings that cast desire as sinful. Family expectations that turn curiosity into shame. The internet, of course, convincing us that everyone else is doing it better, faster, and more dramatically. Put it all together, vulnerability, performance anxiety, body image, shame, cultural myths, and it's no surprise that sex feels scary. It's no surprise that the majority of us have a deeply unhealthy relationship with our own pleasure. Not because of the act itself, but because of everything we've loaded onto it. So this fear of sex we carry isn't irrational. It's inherited, it's educated, and it's culturally reinforced. It's learned behavior passed down like a slightly uncomfortable heirloom. But what's also really interesting is we grew up with that, but because of the internet and social media, we've swung from growing up in a state of repression straight into an information overload. So it's truly a complete clusterfuck. We now live in the most sexually exposed era in history, publicly. Sex is everywhere. Ads, billboards, TikToks, podcasts, hi again, OnlyFans, Instagram stories, entire careers built on thirst traps and suggestive captions. Yet, despite all of this exposure, we are still not actually talking about it in an authentic and helpful way. The paradox is delicious, isn't it? We've gone from sex is private and sacred between man and wife to be sexual all the time, where every glance, every outfit, every gym selfie is interpreted as a statement of libido. But we've been given no tools to navigate it. No emotional intelligence, no guidance on boundaries, consent, or curiosity. Just perform. And everyone online is pretending to be an expert, posting their hot takes or their tips or how to have better sex videos. But nobody within that wants to admit they are confused or nervous or still figuring it out. Vulnerability doesn't get likes after all. Anxiety, shame, and awkwardness don't trend. So we scroll past porn, influencers, and couples in rom-coms who apparently have 12 orgasms before breakfast, and we think, well, if I'm not doing that, I must be broken. The pressure isn't coming from a single source. It's cultural, it's digital, it's social, and it lands squarely on us. Just a side note, porn isn't inherently evil, by the way. Let's not start a moral panic. And you can check out the XXX files for a deep dive on that. It's just spectacularly bad at being realistic. It's like using The Fast and the Furious as your guide to driving. Like thrilling, entertaining, but absolutely not helpful if you want to avoid a crash. Real intimacy isn't about stunt choreography. It's about being attentive to your partner or partners, listening, adjusting, occasionally laughing at yourself when things go sideways, which is not what a lot of porn represents. And the thing is, we are all still learning. Sex isn't a skill you tick off a checklist and suddenly master. It's like a language you keep discovering. Sometimes you speak it fluently, confidently, in ways that thrill your partner. Sometimes you say something completely wrong. You get tangled in your sheets and you completely fumble it. And that's fine. All of it is fine. Pleasure isn't performance. Desire isn't a metric, and connection isn't a PowerPoint. And yet, culturally, we've been made to believe that all of these things are tests or exams that we should pass flawlessly. And that's why sex feels so scary for so many of us, because of everything we have put onto it: expectation, comparison, shame, and secrecy. So let's stop pretending anyone has it all figured out, because nobody does. And that's actually kind of brilliant. That's safe. And all of these fears are learned. They are cultural. They are not biological. And if they are learned, they can be unlearned, which is the good news, because once we unpack the fear, there's room for curiosity and play and actual enjoyment. So today we are going to debunk some of the shit we are taught, and this is hopefully going to make you feel less alone and less scared about the world of sex, because you'll realize that most of the stuff we are fed is bullshit. Some scary facts to make you realize that the only truly scary thing about sex is how little we actually talk about it. And these are less fun facts. They are more, oh, that explains a lot facts. From why most of us lie about how much we are doing it, to the historical fact that Victorian doctors once prescribed orgasms as medicine. It's all coming up. So, grab your pumpkin spice lube and let's get into it. Here is the 10 terrifying truths of sex. Let's start with an uncomfortable truth. Number 1. Most people lie about how often they are having sex. And by lie, I don't mean maliciously. It's more like a collective delusion we all participate in to make ourselves feel more interesting. Survey after survey shows the same pattern. People consistently over-report their sex lives, sometimes doubling, even tripling the actual numbers. And why? Apparently, the real fantasy isn't the sex itself. It's just looking like you are busier than you are in the bedroom. Being perpetually in demand is somehow more important than being honest. And that's not limited to statistics either. Think about your friends, your colleagues. How many times have we casually mentioned we haven't had a day off in weeks in a tone that suggests people should be impressed? That's basically what we do with sex. Suggesting, yeah, we're very busy, thank you, when in reality, it might be once a month. Maybe it's not at all. Maybe you're interrupted because you've fallen asleep mid-kiss. And it's not just to impress others. Sometimes we over-report to impress ourselves. Like psychologically, we try to convince ourselves that we are still desirable, adventurous, exciting. We want to believe we are having more sex than we actually are because it reassures us about our worth, our attractiveness, our sexual competence. But meanwhile, everyone is doing the same thing. And so the cycle continues. Everyone thinks everyone else is more active, more adventurous, more experienced. And if you don't match up, anxiety, insecurity, that gnawing, unspoken fear that you are missing out on some kind of sexual masterclass that the rest of the world is apparently acing. In reality, the average couple has sex about once a week, and that's an average, so roughly 53 times a year. Even among 16 to 44-year-olds, fewer than half have sex once a week. So people aren't performing like porn stars or rom-com leads. People are living, people are working, people are tired, we are eating, we are sleeping, we are binge watching Netflix, and we are occasionally having sex. And that is perfectly fine. The point isn't to hit some arbitrary number. It's to find out what works for you and your partner or partners. Some people are happy with once a week. Some people once a month. Some a lot more. But whatever your balance is, it's valid. There's no rule book. No one should feel shamed into lying about it. Lying only adds more anxiety, more pressure, and more terrible comparison. And all of a sudden, all we've got is people lying all over the fucking shop, and who knows where the truth belongs. And it's all unnecessary because frequency doesn't equal quality. What matters is connection. And here we are lying to ourselves and to each other while scrolling past perfectly curated Instagram stories of someone else's what looks like perfect sex life. So the first terrifying truth is simple. Most people's sex lives probably aren't as busy as they make them out to be. So if your sex life isn't as action-packed as you say it is, and you've told a little white lie about it, don't worry, you're in very good company, but just stop. Let's be more honest and more authentic and make people feel safer. I know I would rather have great sex once a month than sex once a week. Quality over quantity every single time. Number 2. Here's a sobering truth. Only about a third of women, and that's being generous, reliably orgasm from penetrative sex alone. That's right, roughly 2/3 are participating in what could politely be called a piece of community theatre. Everyone's smiling and nodding and pretending it's going splendidly while quietly thinking, well, that happened, I guess. I joke, obviously. Orgasms are not the only measure of a good sexual experience, and it is entirely possible to have an amazing sexual encounter and not orgasm. But the orgasm gap be real, and we need to keep talking about it. And to put it bluntly, a lot of women are not deriving pleasure from sex across the board. The moral of the story, clitorises exist. And lest we forget, the clitoris is the only part of the human body designed purely for pleasure. Nothing else. No reproductive function, no survival purpose, just sheer, unadulterated delight. It's a wonder of evolution, a tiny marvel, and for centuries it's been underappreciated, overlooked, and poorly marketed. Spotlights, applause, maybe even a small parade. It deserves all of that. And it deserves some attention on its 8,000 to 10,000 nerve endings. And given it's a teeny tiny surface area, if you as a partner aren't finding a single one of those nerve endings, then maybe you should be scared of me, because you're going to have to sit through a science lesson. Now, before anyone actually panics, this isn't a reflection on anyone's inherent skill. It's biology, history, and social conditioning all rolled into one awkward package. Centuries of silence, poor sex education, and just enjoy it, dear messaging. sex being positioned as only for the men, for the penis owners. This has left many people, mostly women and vulva owners, but also their male and penis owner partners, confused about how pleasure actually works. Now, the good news is it's easily fixable with curiosity and communication. Start asking questions. Explore together. Focus on what feels good rather than what you think should happen. Use your hands, toys, angles, positions, timing. But what I will say, in this day and age, there is no excuse to keep being a selfish lover. If that's what you are choosing to do and you are not prioritizing learning your partner's body to give them pleasure, then shame on you, and I hope your partner goes and finds someone who does. Yeah, you should be fucking terrified. It is time for us to do better. Vulva owners, I also need you to get on board with me for some masturbatory time, because the more familiar you are with your own vulva and clitoris and what feels good, the more equipped you are to tell your sexual partners what works for you. But to sum up terrifying truth number 2, 2/3, probably more, of women are not having orgasms through penetrative sex. Women need clitoral stimulation to reach orgasm most of the time, and men often assume penetration is enough. So if that 2/3 includes you, it certainly includes me. Don't panic, don't compare, and definitely don't let Hollywood movies tell you otherwise, but start putting some more time into reaching orgasm in other ways, whether that's by yourself or with a partner, because you deserve it. Number 3, the average session lasts about 5 to 7 minutes, but women and vulva owners need about 20 to 40. Yeah, really. And this kind of directly ties into what we were just speaking about. The average sexual encounter clocks in at about 5 to 7 minutes. Now, if we are talking about just penetration, 5 to 7 minutes is entirely normal. Most people, most men and penis owners, don't last longer than that. So the notion that everyone else is some kind of sex marathoner is pure fantasy. So if that is you, take a breath, relax, and stop comparing yourself, because that's how long the majority of men and penis owners last. And thinking everyone else is doing it better or longer is just societal nonsense playing tricks on your brain. However, while penetration itself may be short, for most women, reaching orgasm usually takes 20 to 40 minutes of focused stimulation. That means, as just mentioned, the magic often happens for vulva owners before penetration or after, depending on what order we are working with today. And that's not a reflection on anyone's skill or stamina. It's biology. The female body is designed differently, and pleasure is just not as instantaneous. If it's taking you as a penis owner 5 to 7 minutes to orgasm and your vulva owner partner 20 to 40 minutes, that is fine, and it is all normal. So relax about duration. Men, penis owners, 5 to 7 minutes of penetration, cool, we're good. Don't let cultural myths make you feel inadequate. And for vulva owners, if you've been on the receiving end of foreplay for 30 minutes and you still need some more time and attention, that is also fine. You don't need to feel embarrassed that you are taking too long. Our bodies work differently, and that is fine. Real sexual satisfaction comes from mutual enjoyment, not a stopwatch. So what you probably thought was short penetration is normal. Don't panic, don't compare, but putting time and care into foreplay is essential. This is where most women reach climax, so it's worth the time. When it comes to penetration, there's no ideal duration. Shorter penetration isn't bad, longer sessions aren't mandatory. Enthusiasm and presence matter far more. Your body and your partner's body don't need to fit a number on a chart. They just need curiosity, attention, and care. Worrying about the time only takes the fun out of it. And fun is exactly what sex is for. So 5 to 7 minutes of penetration, cool, but we cannot be looking at 5 to 7 minutes as a full sexual encounter unless that is something that you have agreed upon, because women and vulva owners need more time. Number 4, a slightly terrifying truth. Fear and arousal activate the same areas of the brain. Yep, your amygdala is basically multitasking. I'm scared, but I'm also turned on. That fluttery stomach, racing heart, sweaty palms, that nervous energy, the hope I don't mess this up feeling is basically your brain saying, pay attention because this matters. It heightens your awareness. It makes touch feel sharper. And for reasons evolution refuses to explain politely, it can make pleasure more electric. And that's the subtle, sexy kind of nerves, the kind that makes you alert and present. And most of us freak out about being nervous because we've been taught that vulnerability is a bad look. But in sex, a little vulnerability is exactly what makes it thrilling. Feeling exposed doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you are doing it wrong. It means you are human. Because it turns out that humans are wired so that excitement and fear are two sides of the same coin. But because our brains are clearly so fucked up, there's a big difference between the kind of nerves that make sex fun and the kind that make it unsafe. The good nerves are, as I said, subtle. A flutter of anticipation, the touch of vulnerability, the please don't make me look or feel ridiculous jitters. The bad nerves are the kind that make you shut down or freeze or wish you were anywhere else. Those kinds of nerves are a signal. It's your body saying, nope, stop, this isn't safe. And safety matters. Consent matters. Comfort matters. Feeling that kind of panic is a green light to pause and check in. Don't ignore it. Don't try to push through because our brains decided nerves equals sexy. You know, that's not sexy, that's risky. So it's completely fine to call it what it is. Feeling scared? Say so. Feeling unsafe? Say that too. Tell your partner, pause until you feel ready. Naming how you feel doesn't kill the mood. It creates trust, it creates safety, and it enhances your connection, which, surprise, surprise, actually makes sex better, even though society does not want you to believe that. So yes, a little nervousness can make sex more intense. Like the first time you hook up with someone that you really are attracted to, that you've been building up to, that you really want to hook up with. But if you have the kind of nerves that tip into panic or discomfort, that's your body and your brain telling you to stop or slow down. So listen to yourself, communicate, and prioritize your safety, because sex isn't about being fearless, whether that's a little bit of nervousness or like wild panic. Fearlessness is not an aim for us when it comes to sex. Sex is about being human and vulnerable and knowing that the experience only works when everyone feels safe. Number 5, Victorian doctors treated female hysteria with orgasms. Yes, really. In the 19th century, women who were hysterical, which basically meant anything from anxiety to boredom to having opinions, were prescribed orgasms as medical treatment. And not by just anyone, by doctors with vibrators as a professional recommendation. The story goes that these poor Victorian women were basically sitting in clinics while doctors worked to bring them relief. And while it was framed as a medical procedure, what they were accidentally doing was discovering one of the best inventions ever, the vibrator. Whoops. And it's kind of wild when you think about it. Centuries of repression, prudishness, and women must be proper culture, and somehow the patriarchy accidentally invented a device that's still bringing joy today. Irony at its finest. The bigger point, though, isn't just that history is insane. It's that even back then, women's pleasure existed. Even if society tried to erase it, it was real. And fast forward to today, and we still see the effects. Women are supposed to be sexy, but not too sexy. Orgasms are a performance metric, and we're all still a bit shy talking about it. Female pleasure is not a modern invention, and it's not shameful. If Victorian doctors were prescribing orgasms as treatment, maybe it's time we stop pretending they are a mystery or buying into the idea that enjoying sex is naughty or weird. Number 6, your biggest sex organ is your brain. And this is one that tends to get overlooked. But yes, all the sexy bits you can see are important, obviously. But if your mind isn't in it, nothing else follows. No amount of technique, stamina, or fancy positions will make up for a distracted, stressed, or bored brain. Work deadlines, phone notifications, remembering to pick up the milk and bread, all of that can kill desire faster than any awkward position ever could. Meanwhile, curiosity, imagination, humor, a little flirting, a bit of anticipation, that's what really sparks arousal. Your brain is where desire begins, where fantasies form, where consent, boundaries, and communication actually live. It's basically the CEO of your sexual experience, because if your brain isn't on board, your body is just going through the motions. And it also explains why stress is such a common sex killer. And I spoke about my own recent experience of this on Horny But Hindered a couple of episodes ago. When your mind is overwhelmed, your body might still be physically capable of arousal, but the experience feels flat or disconnected. Conversely, if your mind is relaxed, playful, focused, even the simplest of touch can feel arousing and electrifying. And that's why so many people rave about foreplay and teasing and mental connection. Arousal starts in your head long before any body part gets involved. And this applies to everyone. Men and penis owners, women and vulva owners. Men sometimes think sex is all in the body, but neglecting mental engagement is a fast track to disappointment for everyone. Women are often told, just relax and it'll happen, which completely ignores the fact that pleasure is a collaboration between your mind and your body. So, what does this mean in practice? Make space for your brain. Talk, tease, joke, explore fantasies, check in with yourself, check in with your partner, your partners. Encourage that attention and that patience. A connected mind equals a connected body, which equals sex that actually feels good. Ignore your brain and you're basically playing a very short game of pinball with your own body. And this might sound terrifying because it might sound like more work, and brains might not be glamorous or Instagrammable, but they are the real reason sex works. They are the part of your body that decides whether sex is mind-blowingly good or just kind of awkward. So treat it well and involve it, and then things tend to go a lot better down south. Number 7, we learn more about algebra than pleasure in school. I'd say that's a little truth that explains a lot. Most of us learned how to calculate the area of a trapezium, factor a quadratic, and recite the Pythagorean theorem. But ask someone to label the clitoris on a diagram and watch absolute panic set in. It's like we were all handed a PhD in numbers and a lifetime ban on knowing anything about our own bodies. Sex ed in schools doesn't exactly encourage curiosity either. It's usually, here's a diagram, don't die, or sex is scary and shameful, so just don't do it. Pleasure, exploration, awkwardness, forget it. That was never on the syllabus. I am literally a fully accredited sex educator for kids and young adults, and the curriculum still sucks. Somehow we are supposed to absorb shite sex education, decades of cultural shame, and emerge ready to be functional sexual beings. Spoiler, we don't. And those consequences linger. People carry around this quiet panic, convinced they are doing it wrong because no one ever told them what actually feels good. Adults walking into bedrooms with the same confusion that 15-year-olds have over what goes where. That's why so many people fake orgasms or stay silent about preferences or assume everyone else's sex life is better. But it's never too late to learn. Pleasure is not a math problem, and I'm someone who loves pleasure and maths. Hell, I even find pleasure in doing maths. But communication and experimentation are the new syllabus. The more you talk, the more you discover, the more fun it becomes. So yes, we learned more about algebra than pleasure. But now, armed with adult brains, consent, and vibrators, we can finally start catching up. And when you feel unsure, just remember, everyone else is winging it too. Number 8, shame physically affects arousal. Yeah, feeling embarrassed or guilty about sex literally shuts down your body's arousal. Your brain produces cortisol, the stress hormone, which is basically the biological equivalent of hitting the pause button. So guilt is a real mood killer. You might have the lights dimmed perfectly, the playlist just right, and everything set up for a scene from a rom-com. But if your brain is busy thinking, am I allowed to enjoy this? Am I doing it wrong? What if I look stupid? Your body doesn't care about lighting or music. Desire is gonna take a back seat, and suddenly you're less hot and bothered and more fidgeting and apologizing. And as we've already discussed, shame comes from all sorts of places. Childhood messaging, cultural norms, religion, awkward sex ed classes, or even watching too much unrealistic porn. And the tricky bit is it sneaks in quietly. You might not even realize it's there until it's already wrecking the mood. But shame is negotiable. Naming it out loud, laughing at it, or simply just noticing it in your own head can take a lot of the power away. Saying, this feels a bit awkward, but let's just see how we go, is a lot more effective than silently pretending it's just not there. Communication and self-compassion are key when it comes to dealing with shame whenever it decides to rear its ugly head. If you are embarrassed or anxious, your body will respond accordingly. But if you give yourself permission to enjoy sex without judgment, your brain stops producing cortisol. And as a result, your body relaxes and arousal can actually happen. Pleasure and shame are mutually exclusive. So kicking the guilt to the curb is basically giving yourself a free upgrade to better sex. So yeah, shame literally messes with your ability to enjoy yourself, but recognizing it, laughing at it, and talking about it, that's how you get it out of the bedroom, and then you can let arousal do its thing. Number 9, faking orgasms is extremely common, and it's time to stop. Research across Europe shows that roughly 40% of adults have faked it at some point. In the UK specifically, over half of women and about a fifth of men admit to doing it. So if you faked it, you are in good company. Now, let's be clear. Faking orgasms doesn't make you a bad partner, a liar, or a terrible human being. Most of the time it happens for very human reasons: nerves, wanting to avoid awkwardness, not wanting to hurt someone's feelings, or just hoping the whole thing would be over a little bit faster. And honestly, sometimes it's easier to fake it than have the conversation about what you actually want or need. But let's be clear, it's not actually fine. Not if it keeps happening. Moaning through gritted teeth may save face in the short term, but over time it creates unmet needs and a lot of wasted energy. Sex is supposed to be pleasurable for everyone involved, and faking gives your partner the impression that they are doing everything right. And when everyone's pretending, no one learns, no one improves. The partner who's doing it right stops paying attention because it seems like they are. The person faking it stays silent, hoping things will magically sort themselves out. And the result is years of sex that could be fun are confusing or just meh. And faking also eats away at intimacy. Part of great sex is feeling safe enough to express what works for you, what's enjoyable, what's uncomfortable, what makes you want more. And if you are pretending, you are sending the opposite message. Don't bother asking, don't bother trying, just keep guessing. And guessing rarely leads to amazing orgasms. But faking doesn't have to be permanent. Studies show that people stop faking orgasms when they feel safer, more relaxed, or more confident in communicating what they actually want. Because that is where the magic happens. Talking, exploring, giving feedback, and letting your partner know what works for you. Partners need to actively invest in their partner's pleasure. Everyone needs to take responsibility for making their partner feel safe, seen, and satisfied. And everyone needs to feel safe to speak up. Saying, "That didn't really do it for me," is not criticism. It's the roadmap to better sex. So yes, faking is extremely common. You're not broken if you've done it, but it's a short-term convenience that guarantees long-term frustration if it becomes habit. It's time to stop. Talk, explore, make space for real pleasure. Invest the time. Stop pretending. That's how sex actually gets better for everyone. And finally, number 10, talking about sex makes it less scary. Here is the final terrifying truth. The more we talk about sex, the less scary it actually is. Revolutionary, right? And yet somehow it's treated like the forbidden topic at every dinner party. And I should know. I talk about sex all the time. And while people in my immediate circle are used to it, some people react as if I've just summoned a demon, clutching their teacups like I've announced I've brought a plague upon us all. Talking about sex doesn't kill the mood. Silence does. The more you communicate with a partner about what you like, what feels good, what's awkward, or even just can we try this, the better it gets. Asking questions, making requests, giving feedback, that's not boring or clinical. It's downright sexy. There's nothing fucking hotter than a partner who is listening, paying attention, and actually responding to what works for you. And here we go. Statistically, people who talk about sex regularly report higher satisfaction, more orgasms, and fewer anxieties. So this is not just me chatting shit. It's not just anecdotal. It is backed by research. Communication is literally the least spooky, most effective magic trick in the bedroom. It's free, it works, and it doesn't require a PhD or a vibrator, even though both of those are nice too. And it's worth saying that talking about sex doesn't mean you have to be serious or clinical. You can laugh, you can joke, you can tease, you can be playful. Share your desires, share your fears, share your weird fantasies. Obviously, weird in quotes. Refer to the last episode and the next episode you've got coming. Nothing is weird. We all know this. But the act of verbalizing all of this stuff reduces any shame and anxiety, and it just constantly reminds us all that everyone is figuring it out as they go. Every new partner is going to be different. Every new encounter can be fresh and exciting. Sex will never be perfect because there's no such thing, but it does get a hell of a lot better when it's talked about. So say the words. Ask the questions, laugh about it, admit when something is confusing or awkward or feels just plain weird. The more you talk, the more normal it becomes, the less scary it feels, and the better sex is. Silence is the real terror, not the orgasms, not the sex faces, not the awkward noises, not even the fumbles. Talk. Laugh, explore, repeat. The real horror isn't sex. It's pretending sex is something that we can't discuss. Friends, lovers, listeners, I hope on this All Hallows Eve we can take a moment for our fear of sex and why we find it all so terrifying. It's powerful, it's vulnerable, it's intimate. It has the uncanny ability to make us feel exposed in ways that nothing else really does. And yeah, for centuries, society has trained us to fear exactly that. To fear pleasure, desire, and the awkward, messy reality of our bodies and our emotions. To fear anything that reminds us we're human. But fear isn't a sign that you are broken. Far from it. Fear is a marker. It's a signal that what's happening matters. That the connection, the pleasure, the intimacy, it's all significant. It's real. And real things are rarely safe from nerves. So how do we stop being terrified and start having fun again? Let's ditch the idea of a performance. Good sex isn't a TED Talk. There's no scorecard. There's no judging panel. There's certainly no certificate for best technique. It is supposed to be messy, ridiculous, and full of laughter. You might end up in a compromising position, get tangled in your sheets, accidentally elbow each other in the face, and that's all part of the experience. And if you can't laugh during sex, I promise you're honestly missing out on half the fun. As we've discussed, talk. Yes, I know, ill. But asking, what do you like? Or how does this feel is infinitely sexier than guessing and fumbling. Even the most mundane conversations about touch or rhythm can turn into moments of connection. And the best part is you don't have to be eloquent. A giggle, a very British, I have no idea what I'm doing, sorry, is perfectly valid. Honesty trumps perfection every single fucking time. Be curious about yourself, your partner, your desires. Explore, experiment, taste the metaphorical or literal chocolate box. You don't have to have it all figured out. Nobody does. Our bodies are always changing. So every person, every encounter, every moment of intimacy is an opportunity to learn something new, whether that's about sensation or connection. Curiosity replaces pressure with playfulness, and that's where the fun lives. And finally, compassion for yourself, for others, and for all the awkward, how did I even get here moments that make us human. Compassion means recognizing that imperfection is the point, that it's normal to feel nervous, clumsy, or a bit ridiculous. Sometimes things will go wrong, but those moments often make the best stories and the best memories. Hell, it gives me the best content for this podcast. Sex is not a test that you pass. It's an experience that you share. It's a conversation, a dance, a language that you practice together. And when you stop trying to be good at sex, everything changes. The tension goes, the anxiety fades, and suddenly sex becomes fun again. It's playful and real and unscripted. And the best moments happen when you stop trying to be perfect and you start just being present. Because the most enjoyable sex isn't the one with perfect timing or perfect technique or perfect lighting. It's the one where people feel safe to be themselves. Awkward faces, noises and all. That's where connection lives. That's where laughter lives. And that's where the fun lives. So let's give ourselves permission. Permission to explore, to laugh, to stumble and to talk. Permission to make mistakes. Permission to enjoy. Because when we do that, sex stops being scary and starts being something we actually want to do. And listen, we can't erase the fear entirely. It will linger like an unwelcome house guest, but you can make friends with it, laugh at it, invite it to sit quietly in the corner while you get on with enjoying yourself. Let it be present without letting it take over. So go forth and de-terrify your sex life. Talk about it, explore it, stumble, laugh, be curious, and above all, enjoy it. Safely, enthusiastically, and ideally without apologizing afterwards. Because the more we normalize pleasure, the less intimidating it becomes. And remember this because it's worth repeating. Sex isn't scary. Silence is. If you enjoyed this episode, send it to someone who still blushes when someone says orgasm. And if that person is you, congratulations. You just made it through a whole hour of talking about sex. And that's great. Celebrate it. I will see you next time for the second half of our kinky alphabet. But until then, let's take the fear out of sex and put the fun back in. Thanks for coming. Thank you for tuning in to Sex on the Peach today, and I hope that you enjoyed this week's episode. You can find and follow me on Instagram, YouTube and TikTok at Sex on the Peach Cast, and you can also get in touch with me at sexonthepeachcast@gmail.com. Please do continue to like, share, subscribe, rate and review wherever you listen to your podcasts, and I'll see you next week. Love, Peach.